Welcome to the Mastering E-commerce Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Eitan Koter, co-CEO of Vimy. In an era of rising acquisition costs and increased competition, this podcast is dedicated to helping you drive sales, engage customers, and build meaningful communities so you can turn passive visitors into active buyers. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on future content. Now let's get started with the episode. Hello e-commerce fans, welcome to another episode of Mastering E-commerce Marketing. I'm here today with Ben Marks, Director of Global Market Development at Shopware. Ben, how are you? Welcome.
I'm doing great, Ethan. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great way to start the year off.
Yes, we're at the beginning of a new year, a lot of energies. Obviously, we are planning your year as well. But Ben, you have an extensive background in e-commerce. I think it's worthwhile to spend a few minutes just explaining our audience about who you are and what's your background. What are you busy today with Shopware?
Yeah, so about 20 years ago, I just kind of got sucked into the tech world, started helping out on websites, and I taught myself to be a programmer, learned PHP, doing OS commerce, which is a terrible way to learn PHP. But over the years, the work that I was doing on websites just kept coming back to, there were very often commerce requirements. So I kept having to kind of build solutions in this space. And then when Magento came along, I joined an agency that had kind of sprung up around that and really spent a good chunk of my time in the Magento ecosystem, which was for me, it was interesting though, because just learning Magento was it helped me fill in a lot of the gaps that I had in my knowledge and abilities as a programmer. It was a bit more complex than what I think most people working on PHP projects experience. So, but then from there, it was great to be around an entire worldwide ecosystem. I went to 50 countries with that job, met tens of thousands of people, and got to listen to a lot of the problems and challenges that pop up in this space. I mean, that's one of the great things. One of the things I've always enjoyed about e-commerce is it's not really ever boring, right? Because there's always something new coming along, and there's always some strategic advantage to either to be ignored at your peril or to identify and go after. So that's part of what I do. Part of what I do at Shopware, aside from the public engagement, is looking to see what those opportunities are, and that's one of the things that I've enjoyed about Shopware is this just constant commitment to going after the new things, but going after them in a meaningful and sustainable way. So not going after things for the hype, but going after technology for what it can do to help our merchants.
Yeah, so what's the Shopware's differentiators? I mean, there are a few players out there. I know Shopware is growing internationally. What's your main marketing messages that you want to address today? We basically emphasize agency. I mean, and you could probably take a pun out of that if you like. I mean, the agencies we work with are probably in some dimensions our most important customers, right? Because we build a turnkey solution, but you would never want to use us directly, like we come out of the box, especially, and I'm speaking mostly about anything, the upper small business or mid-market, people find their way to Shopware because they've recognized that they have requirements, whether that's integration or functionality that aren't really easily met, especially by SaaS platforms. It's not a knock against SaaS platforms. They serve a great and powerful purpose in the e-commerce platform marketplace. But people come to Shopware because they know they need a measure of control to build the things that are going to make a difference for their business. And it's not just about customer engagement. It's also about how things work on the operations side, right? So we built everything that we've built, as I said, turnkey, but with the expectation that it's going to be customized, and we want that kind of extensibility to exist both for building the right customer experience, but also making sure that the folks in the back office or the warehouse or whatever their task is, that they have a concise, friendly, usable interface to get their job done. Basically, ironically, I think we're always happiest on the operations side when people forget that they're actually working with software, right? They're just in there and they just get their work done.
So you emphasize the probably the complete solution that can be provided by Shopware, but also Shopware emphasizes headless solutions, right? API architectures. Right. Can you explain the significance of this approach to merchants who are maybe unfamiliar with this concept?
Yeah, I mean, well, I would hopefully most merchants are familiar with the various approaches to building and specifically maintaining an e-commerce experience, right? You can build something awesome, but it may not be the thing that you need down the road. So, yeah, what I like to say, whenever I hear about PWA, like a progressive web app or headless or anything, I always like to ask a merchant. I think the first question that anyone in participating in that conversation should ask is, why do you think? Like, what do you mean? Putting that back on the merchant. Like, what do you mean you need headless? What do you mean you need microservices or any other architectural approach? I think it's been a disservice. It's a complicated industry that we work in, but it's been a bit of a disservice when we have merchants asking vendors for specific architectures, right? Because we're already pretty far away from what the merchant's actual problems are. So that's why I like to turn that question back on them. But but theoretically, headless in general is about the flexibility to deliver an experience for a customer no matter how they're experiencing your brand, right? So if you want to change platforms, theoretically you can change platforms because you have this headless installation, the machinery of the site that actually ties together everything that the front end is, whether the front end is on a desktop or laptop or a phone or in an app or at a kiosk in a store. Headless can accommodate all of these different front ends, and when it's well built and well delivered, it can provide some real advantages when it comes to adding in other components, other adjacent technologies, which is the norm these days, right? Because our specialty is several parts of e-commerce functionality, but then you start getting into customer data management, you start getting into remarketing and ERP and all these other concerns. And there are other applications that do this really well. And so any application that is built for headless, if it's been built well, will accommodate integration much more readily than an application that's trying to do it all and trying to own it all. Mm-hmm. So that for me is it's an important context to have. But again, if you're a merchant out there and you're asking yourself questions that sound very architectural driven, you really get back and focus on what you need to do. So if someone says to me, "Hey, we want to be headless," I say, "Why do you want to be headless?" Well, we want to be able to iterate and change rapidly. Like, what if we want to drop this e-commerce platform and replace it with this one, or drop this part and replace it with this? I'd say, well, realistically, that doesn't happen very often. Yeah. It's good to not build yourself too much into a corner, but man, there's corners everywhere you look in this business, right? You can build dependencies on specific agencies. You can build dependencies certainly on specific platforms. And the more you start to bring multiple things together, there are a lot of risks to really encumber yourself. So just focus on your business requirements and then constantly resolve the message and the information you're getting from your vendors or your prospective vendors, and make sure that you're resolving it back to your actual needs and they're helping you solve those problems directly.
Yes. I hear that probably you spend a lot of hours every day with customers, right?
Yeah. Over the years, we actually have a pretty full team in the U.S. I'm part of the product team here at Shopware, so I actually report into the European organization. And of course, we have a well-established, most of our business right now is still in the German-speaking countries. So these guys spend a lot of time with the customers and prospects. But yeah, over the years, I've taken a lot of those calls. I've been responsible for project delivery when I was working at Blue Acorn. And I have spent a lot of time out in the field, out at conferences, just having these open discussions. I mean, for me, it's just there's so many great platform solutions out there. I always like to ask these questions because it can help me get the merchant to the right vendor.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily care about winning business, winning the business for Shopware, unless we're the right choice, right? Because if we're not the right choice, then the best thing that we can do as an industry is help people get to the right choice.
Yes. It's probably kind of a trusted advisor type of approach, right? I mean, you want to work with this company, trying to understand, what problems they're trying to solve, right?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that really is that trusted advisor, that consultative approach.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that is also something that merchants of a certain size. I mean, if you're just starting out, you probably go with Shopify or Wix or WooCommerce or something. Go with something that's simple, that you can get up and running quickly, and that handles a lot of this stuff for you. And I don't think that requires a ton of consultation, right? But as you start to grow into multiple millions in turnover per year,
mm-hmm.
What we've seen is that just there are just arbitrary but important complexities that pop up that just aren't easily solved. And the right vendor mix, when you're thinking about an e-commerce project, especially like a re-platform, so you're either dealing with an internal team, very often dealing with an agency, certainly looking at the e-commerce platform, your current platform, or some other one. You want to make sure that you're getting that advisor's approach, and that the people advising you have enough experience in the business that they can recognize when the solution that they might prefer to work with won't be the right one. And what I mean by that is that, for a long time, there were agencies that specialized in one platform. And on the one hand, it's great to be a specialist in something. You can go really deep and build some really cool stuff. But does that mean are you able to give these prospective merchants like a fair shake when you're looking at that RFQ or RFP, and are they going to be able to say, oh wait, you know what? Gosh, you're not a fit for Magento. You should really look over at this one over here.
Mm-hmm.
So I always value when I see agencies taking the time to be familiar with other platforms, so that they can offer that kind of just genuine advice. That I'm always impressed by that. And then it's the fact that these days a lot of agencies have now branched out, and they offer more than one solution, right? And so I think that's a good thing to look for, because that means that they have the perspective.
Yes. I mean, Shopify obviously changed a lot. It's very difficult to just sustain the whole agency just to one provider, right? So,
yeah, I mean, I think I'm seeing a lot of the legacy Magento agencies. I still spend time, networking with that ecosystem, because quite honestly, they're good. That's a good market for Shopware as well. But I put a lot of energy into that ecosystem, and I'm always happy to see it doing well. I think that an agency these days, what I'm seeing more and more of is Shopify. A lot of them have added Shopify. If they're not already doing Shopify, they are talking about doing Shopify. We'll see agencies that have done Magento will also do like Salesforce, and maybe they've gotten into BigCommerce in the past. BigCommerce is kind of I'm really interested to see what happens with BigCommerce this year in 2025 with all of the leadership changes over there last year. And I'm hoping sometime I get to meet Travis, the new top dog over there. Everyone I know that knows him says he's just a hell of a guy. He's got a great career. He did an interviews on the Watson Weekly.
Mm-hmm.
Or Watson Weekend podcast. I ended up listening to that episode twice, because he was saying a lot of great stuff. He clearly gets the industry, but he's taking, he's going to be taking that business, towards. I wouldn't be surprised to see BigCommerce just aligning more strongly with the Accentures and Deloittes of the world, and them trying to become a more of a tool in the toolbox for how those consultants, like to sell their projects. I've got some experience in the years I've trained. I've done trainings actually for both Deloitte and Accenture in the past. It's a very different world, but hey, there's plenty of the pie is plenty big for all of us. So I still know some of the people over at BigCommerce, and I wish them success. But it's a big change they're going through.
Yes, obviously it's a thriving market and it's growing, but there are considerable challenges. And what do you hear from merchants today? What are the major challenges they face?
Well, I mean, they are almost to a person concerned with CapEx and OpEx. They're by now pretty much everyone either has gone through a replatforming or they know someone who has. And so there's to say that the financial environment is conservative at this point is an understatement, right? People are just really reluctant, and I don't blame anyone, especially if you're looking at a replatform. Like, you're probably betting your job on that replatform, and replatforms very often, there's some bad replatformings out there, and no one, if what you have is already making money, even if it's a leaky faucet, do you go and just turn things off, outside at the source, or do you just kind of let the money continue to drip in? So there's a lot going on. We are seeing people, I think I'm seeing investments where businesses are hardening, or making more robust their current solution, and they're looking at some of the adjacent pieces. So maybe the current e-commerce platform stays in place, but merchants are wanting to level up their access to and understanding of customer data, right? So they might be introducing a CDP, or picking a vendor, like Digital or others who have this data platform built in, so that they can avail themselves of all the tools that are coming down. I mean, on the one hand, you've got this stagnation of platform, but you have this just rapid, this accelerating force that is AI, and what AI brings to all of these various providers. Because it's not like AI is just for the e-commerce platform. AI is essential in personalization, in intelligent search. I mean, those were the vendors that were actually dealing with big data and machine learning. So they already have the chops, really, to engage this new generative AI era that we find ourselves in. But of course, you see it popping up literally everywhere. People being able to engage with their data and systems in natural language, and and the really good ones will have sort of locally trained models that make the insights and the results even more profound. So it's exciting, but if I read past the questions and the discussions that I'm having with merchants, everyone's just like, how do we know what's the right thing to do? How do we know what's the right, where should we be dropping our investment dollars to make sure that we're not falling behind the marketplace and our competitors?
I mean, having that agility mentality is not something which is probably inherent in some of these companies' DNA, right? I mean, it's just this move fast, break things, lose early. Yeah. I mean, this is just sometimes it's very, very difficult based on the internal processes and platforms that you have. Yep.
And we're, of course, I just naturally had to bring up AI. It is unfortunate that is maybe the hypiest hype of topics that I've seen in my career. But, the hype was real. I mean, there was a very real moment, just over 2 years ago. There was like the day before ChatGPT was released and the days after. And it's crazy to me. Our kid he's in between boats right now, so he's at our house. But just watching him, as a 31-year-old, just like everything he does, whereas I have used Google as my sort of interface into a world of knowledge and solutions and learning, that's ChatGPT for him, and he uses it for everything. There's all sorts of implications about the benefit of doing your own work and synthesizing your own things. But I have also started to use it for when I'm trying to understand trends, for example, it's great. I can ask ChatGPT like, hey, what was the give me the breakout of the top 5 e-commerce platforms over the last 5 years, sort of by revenue. And I still kind of I'm very much in trust but verify mode with all things generative.
Right?
Yeah, I mean I'm not going straight to the press with the output, but what that does is that's like what would have been a almost daunting task of like I'm going to spend like 10 hours aggregating all this data and putting everything back. Now it's like, oh, it's right there.
Yes, faster.
And then I can actually start to I can move beyond that initial data gathering phase quickly and just move right into, okay, what's my analysis? What do I think about this? And then if I want to, I can can have this kind of conversant iterative engagement with ChatGPT or others.
I'm really interested to talk with you about community building. I know throughout your days with Magento, you've been a Magento evangelist, right? You traveled over the world, building and working with these communities. And you played a key role in the overall Magento ecosystem. So what are your thoughts about community building? Because this is a very, very important topic for any marketer today, right? Just to build your tribe, right? But what strategies or tips or thoughts you have regarding fostering innovation, with collaboration within the community?
Yeah, the number one thing for me is authenticity, especially in a sector where there are a lot of choices. The being authentic and being authentic, hopefully that doesn't just sound easy. Like, oh, I'll just be truthful. It requires an incredible amount prioritization on personal and corporate insight. Do we know what we're building and who we're building it for? And it's very, very, very easy for any product company to think they know what it is they're building and who they're building for. But in the case of Magento, I mean, we absolutely screwed that up, and I'm a part of that. Because in 2015, we released went from Magento 1, Magento 2 came out.
Yep.
And the Magento 2 story, I mean, really the one who could probably tell the story better is Eitan Koter, who's the co-founder along with Roy Rubin of Magento, and maybe a couple of guys like Maxi Katerienko, who was the head of Magento 2 product. But when we released that software, we broke a lot of people's businesses, right? Because we just assumed that we had taken everything that had made Magento 1, so applicable and just kind of work for so many different kinds of people. An interesting profile, by the way, back in 2013, 2014. So this was still in the eBay days. Magento did a survey and found out that about 60% of the Magento instances were actually built and maintained by the person whose store it was.
Wow.
Right. So these were people just installing a software package and figuring out just a little bit to, enough to be able to make modifications. And that persona was completely absent in the development of Magento 2. And then there were some other issues there. But that for me, I always hold on to that example, and I try to remember to, claim my part in that, because the harm and challenge and ultimately just a lot of waste that came out of that just had to do with us not paying attention and not realizing that we were actually building a fundamentally different product. Because it's not that the wrong product was built. It's just that we didn't go to market with this message of like, hey, if you're anything less than like a 30-person agency, you're probably not going to be able to make money building off of this. If you are an independent shop runner and you're going to try and go you barely have a Magento 1 instance hanging on, and you want to just jump on over to Magento 2, you're going to have a bad time. Sorry to make that such a long, a long answer, but I think it really, if you have to start from authenticity, and authenticity requires constant introspection and resolving what you see and experience, especially from out at the periphery, out where your ecosystem is, you've got to really give a lot of stock to that messaging coming back, because that's like the last chance you have to address problems. But in general, I mean, it's about, I encourage people, when I've advised people on building ecosystems, it's easy to pay attention to like the top line metrics, like an increase in the number of size, the number of participants in your ecosystem, maybe an increase in the volume of messages. I think one of the most important measurements you can take of your ecosystem is actually how much they start to interact with each other. Mm-hmm. Right. And how much they start building that fiber, weaving that fiber together. Because that's where the real magic is going to happen. And then, as anyone building a community will generally recognize that you have about 1% of your community is highly engaged. And then in that 1%, you have another very small subset who are your like super contributors, who are there, and they're the ones that actually will create conferences or meetups. They'll be the ones producing real value multiplying content and engagement for the rest of the ecosystem. And as you if you can find those people and promote them early on, then that's how you inspire other people. And that's how you scale evangelism, mm-hmm. right? You scale evangelism not by having one person go out and talking to a bunch of people. You scale it by having a person going out to inspire other people and let them become mm-hmm. the evangelists especially in their vertical, in their geography, whatever the case is. Like, right. if I go and speak at, Meet Magento India, it's great. A lot of the people in India learned from videos that I was in, so they're happy to see me up there. But I'd much rather have someone, like if I'm in Tamil Nadu, I want to have Tamil Nadu person on stage speaking to these folks and able to make those like the meaningful cultural jokes. But I want people to see themselves represented on stage, whether it's a literal stage or it's in a GitHub, comment thread, whatever the case may be.
Wow. Very, very interesting. So, Ben, we are currently at the beginning of 2025, right? And we're looking for this year and the planning for this year. Well, and from your background experience and watching where the market is going, what are some of your probably tips or lessons you can provide to other e-commerce leaders out there?
Well, I mean, I realize that especially with AI, like the choices can be dizzying. I'd say just general advice, and I think this can apply, to merchants, to, agency MDs, is you make sure you have, I would prioritize gathering data, making sure you have deep data collection apparatus, and that you have the tools in place to take advantage of that. That is going to deliver outsized returns, I think, over the next couple of years as AI really sort of finds its way and winds itself into everything. Yeah. Right? And the good news there is that a lot of this data is probably being collected already in bits and pieces. It just may be in various silos. So I would expect that we'll see some businesses popping up or departments within agencies that can help merchants, sort of bridge the gaps or tear down the silo walls, whatever metaphor we want to use. But that's going to be that. Data has always been important, but in this current state of affairs, data is the spice. It is going to be driving everything. And the signals around this are there. I mean, I'm regularly solicited by Visa and MasterCard, to come participate in or speak at something on open banking. I mean, when you have the cartel talking about, they're engaging this, so they know that everything's going open, and MasterCard has released products that that indicate they know that customer data is the thing. So like your payment provider, when you have a card network offering the ability to give you consumer behavior for the activities, the purchases that your consumers are making not on your site, like yeah, they've kind of understood now that the data is the future for them, because the payments, the vig on payments is going down on a long enough timeline.
Because if you need to implement AI, you must implement AI, whether to save costs, time, improve efficiency, personalization. You need to have this fuel, this data, right, for the AI engines to pump, really good, valuable information for you, right?
Yeah, when your board is like, okay, so what's our AI strategy? You damn well better have an answer, right? And and hopefully that answer is like, oh, well, this is what we are doing, not this is what we are going to do. You really, and I think there again, it's not that difficult to start to bring some of this up, bring this into your solution stack already. But it does mean you probably should be having these conversations. If you're a merchant, have these conversations with your agency. What are they doing? How are they using AI, generative tools in their own work?
Yeah.
But how much of an awareness do they have about what this trend is among the various vendors? Because very often the agency is going to be recommending your marketing solution, your PIM, and other things. And you want an agency that understands how these things can be tied together.
Great, Ben. So how people can find you, where they can reach you?
I'm pretty easy. I'm on LinkedIn. I think BH Marks is my handle. You can find me on Twitter, Ben Marks. You can, let's see. Unfortunately, Twitter's dying. You can also email me. I'm easy. I'm Ben at shopware.com. But yeah, and I'm always up to have these discussions. I learn a lot from them, and I would love to know that my ideas might have. Well, I want to know whether they're valid or not, and the only way I can do that is by hearing from people in the industry. And I'll be out at some of the trade shows this year.
Sure. Great, Ben. It was super interesting. I wish you all the best. Amazing year. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe so you won't miss any of our future content. And if you could share this with just one person, it would make all the difference. Are you looking to accelerate your sales with the power of shoppable video? Explore Vimy, the video commerce platform that includes live shopping, shoppable video, and social commerce capabilities. Visit Vimy at www.vimy.net, that's VIMMI.net, where you can start with a free for life package. We appreciate your support and look forward for bringing you more valuable insights in our next episode.